If I told you that the fall of the Roman Empire might have started with the rage of a 16-year-old Chinese prince in the Far East, would you believe me? It sounds like a crazy alternate history timeline, but in academic circles, this is known as the butterfly effect of the Great Eurasian Migration. Before we begin, we must clarify one thing. Historians still fiercely debate whether the terrifying Huns, who later attacked Europe, were the direct descendants of the Xiongnu nomads defeated by China. But one thing is absolutely certain. In the 2nd century BC, a Chinese emperor launched a super war that triggered a chain reaction, shaking the entire Eurasian continent. He flapped his wings in the east, and centuries later, Rome felt the storm. Today, we are not just telling the story of an emperor. We are unmasking a geopolitical catastrophe that reshaped the ancient world. To understand this, we have to look at the global board game of the time. Around 140 BC, there were two suns on Earth, completely unknown to each other. In the West, the Roman Republic had just destroyed Carthage, turning the Mediterranean into its own private lake. In the East, the Han Dynasty controlled vast agricultural lands and unimaginable wealth. These two superpowers were shockingly similar. They both ruled over 50 million people. They both possessed efficient bureaucracies. They both built massive highway systems. If the Roman legions and the Han army had met on an open field, the outcome would be impossible to predict. Rome had the unbreakable testudo formation and heavy infantry. The Han possessed the black technology of the era, the heavy crossbow, with range and penetration far beyond anything in the West. But there was one fundamental difference: their enemies. Rome fought static cities and tribes. The Han Dynasty, however, lived under the shadow of a ghost, the Xiongnu. The Xiongnu were the first true steppe empire in human history. They had no cities to sack, no farmlands to destroy. They were all cavalry. They came like the wind, plundered everything, and vanished like mist into the Gobi Desert. This presented an unsolvable puzzle for an agricultural civilization. Your infantry is too slow. Your chariots are useless targets. You build a wall, and they just go around it. For 60 years before Emperor Wu ascended the throne, the Han Dynasty was forced to adopt a humiliating policy known as Haitian, diplomatic marriage. The emperor had to regularly send royal princesses, along with tons of gold and silk, to the nomad chieftains, begging for peace. Imagine if Julius Caesar, instead of conquering Gaul, had to send a Roman princess and tribute to a barbarian king every year. That was the humiliating reality for the Han Dynasty, until 141 BC. A 16-year-old prince named Liu Che ascended the Han throne as Emperor Wu. He was a rare messianic figure, young, arrogant, and possessed by an infinite lust for power. He was done sending women. He wanted to answer the nomads with iron and blood, but he faced a technical problem. To defeat the nomads, you cannot fight like a farmer. You must evolve. The young emperor made a decision that defied his ancestors. He realized that traditional chariots were obsolete. He needed to build a panzer division for the ancient world. He drained the national treasury to breed horses. He broke the aristocratic monopoly on military command, promoting a former slave named Wei Qing to general. It was unthinkable, like making a gladiator a Roman consul. But this slave and his 19-year-old nephew, Huo Qubing, completely changed the logic of warfare. The climax arrived in 119 BC. the Battle of Mobay. This was the largest cavalry engagement in the ancient world. The emperor bet the fate of the nation, deploying over 300,000 horses, nearly half of the Han Dynasty's total horse reserves at the time. For context, Hannibal only had about 10,000 cavalry at Cannae. The scale of the Han army was 10 times that of the Mediterranean wars. The young god of war, Hua Kubing, created a terrifying tactic. We might call it an ancient version of Blitzkrieg. He abandoned heavy supply wagons entirely. He ordered his troops to feed on the enemy, stealing their cattle, drinking their horses' milk. This gave him speed that matched and even exceeded the nomads. The Han army pushed 1,000 kilometers deep into the desert. This is equivalent to a Roman legion marching from Italy, on foot, across the Sahara Desert to attack an enemy. This wasn't a war. It was a hunt. Hua Kubing annihilated 70,000 enemies and marched all the way to the Holy Wolf Mountain to offer sacrifices to the heavens. For the Xiongnu, this was the apocalypse. Their royal court was destroyed. The survivors faced a grim choice: surrender or run west. Remember that direction? West. These refugees were about to bring a nightmare to Europe. Beyond the smoke of war, Emperor Wu had an even greater ambition. He wanted to know where the world ended. Even before the counterattack began, he had sent a diplomat named Zhang Qian on a seemingly suicidal mission. This journey was the Odyssey of the East. Zhang Qian was captured immediately and spent 10 years as a slave to the nomads. But he didn't break. He escaped and continued west, crossing the Pamir Mountains into modern-day Central Asia. There he saw a sight that shattered his worldview. He reached Bactria, a land touched by Alexander the Great's conquests, still holding traces of Hellenistic civilization. He saw Greek-style statues. He saw merchants trading with silver coins bearing the faces of kings. He even heard rumors of a massive empire further west called Lygian, China's first vague awareness of Rome. When he finally returned to the capital, 13 years later, ragged and weary, his intelligence report set the emperor's imagination on fire. The world was not just China and the nomads. There were markets, allies, and treasures in the west. Thus, the Silk Road was born. We think of it as a romantic trade route, but in Emperor Wu's hands, it was the lifeline of the empire. He extended the Great Wall into the desert, not just as a barrier, but as a highway. Silk flowed west, becoming a luxury that Roman senators complained about. Gold and glass flowed east. This was globalization 1.0, escorted by the blade of a sword. To secure this route, and to satisfy his obsession with legendary heavenly horses, the emperor turned his gaze to the kingdom of Daiwan in the Fergana Valley. When the king of Daiwan refused to trade and killed a Han envoy, he assumed he was safe. He thought the distance and the desert would protect him. He was wrong. The emperor's motto was chillingly simple: those who offend the mighty Han will be punished, no matter how far away. In 104 BC, the Han army launched one of the most insane expeditions in military history. This was a rare direct clash between East and West. The Daiwan army was influenced by Greek military tradition, possessing strong fortifications and soldiers who likely utilized phalangeal tactics. Facing this Hellenistic defense, the Han army demonstrated a dimensional strike. First, the crossbow. The Han mechanism, with its bronze sights, outranged composite bows. Before the enemy could even engage, the arrow rain reaped lives like the Grim Reaper. Second, engineering. the Han did not just climb walls, they diverted the river that flowed through the city. Under the despair of thirst and arrows, the nobles surrendered, executing their king and handing over the horses. The Han banner had been planted on the edge of the Mediterranean sphere of influence. But glory has a price tag. These campaigns cost astronomical sums. Where did the money come from? Here, Emperor Wu showed his cold genius as a politician. He implemented the state monopoly on salt and iron. In the ancient world, salt was survival and iron was industry. He nationalized these critical industries. Only the state was allowed to produce and sell them. Imagine if a modern government suddenly monopolized the entire internet and oil industry overnight. The treasury swelled, funding decades of war, but the cost was transferred directly to the back of every peasant buying a bag of salt. He not only controlled the wallet, he controlled the mind. While expanding borders, he revolutionized ideology, establishing Confucianism as the sole state philosophy. This wasn't just for culture, it was for control. He reshaped it to emphasize the divine right of kings and absolute obedience, defining the Chinese moral DNA for the next 2,000 years. Yet, this emperor of the ages could not tolerate a single honest word. The grand historian Sima Qian was sentenced to castration simply for speaking up for a defeated general. In ancient China, this was a humiliation worse than death. But Sima Qian chose to live in shame to finish his life's work. The records of the grand historian. He wrote it all down, the emperor's greatness and his cruelty. It remains the darkest footnote of the era. In his twilight years, the emperor fell into the curse of absolute power. He became paranoid, obsessed with immortality. He launched a purge known as the witchcraft scandal, convinced that sorcery was being used against him. Tens of thousands were executed in the capital. In the end, fear drove him to drive his own son, the crown prince, to suicide. When the dust settled, the old man stood in an empty palace and finally woke up. He issued the Edict of Luntai, a public apology to the entire world. He admitted he had been mad and tyrannical, and stopped the expansion. In the ancient world, it was almost unheard of for an absolute monarch to bow his head to his subjects. It was his final act of heroism. Emperor Wu died, but his legacy continued to spin. Returning to that crazy theory from the beginning, the beaten northern Xiongnu, unable to survive in Asia, were forced to migrate west. Centuries later, a legion known as the Huns appeared on the borders of Europe, led by the scourge of God, Attila. While details are debated, the geopolitical pressure from the east undoubtedly triggered the Great Migration. The Huns pushed the Germanic tribes. The Germanic tribes flooded into Rome, and the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Emperor Wu flapped his wings, and Rome felt the storm. He reigned for 54 years. If you asked a peasant of his time, they might call him a tyrant who broke countless families. But if you stand back and look at the grand tapestry of history, he defined the territory of an empire for 2 millennia. He shaped the soul of a civilization. He opened the door for East and West to shake hands for the first time. Even today, the largest ethnic group on Earth calls themselves Han, named after his dynasty. He was Caesar, he was Alexander, and he was a lonely, repentant old man. He used the sword to carve out a space for his people, and in doing so, he accidentally knocked over the dominoes that would reshape the world. So, was he a hero or a tyrant? And if the Han heavy cavalry had truly faced off against the Roman legions on the battlefield, Who would have been the last one standing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is Civilization Unmasked. Next time, we enter an era of betrayal and blood, the prequel to the Three Kingdoms, the rise of the tyrant Dongzhuo. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.